The Basketball Hall of Fame 60 Days of Summer is your chance to see your favorite basketball stars live and in person. Check hoophall.com for a complete list of all these exciting appearances and plan your trip today.
How's everybody today? Let's hope you can understand this southern accent I got. He introduced me as the Houston coach, but I was raised in rural Mississippi. I developed a deep southern accent. I've never been able to get rid of it, okay? Can I tell a quick story
Of
right
course.
quick? I may as well start out. I was coaching the Olympics. We win the gold medal, and the Russian coach gets up, and they have an interpreter for him. And you know, he talks, and then the interpreter talks. So when it comes time, we just won the gold medal, and he introduced me, and he said, well, with this coach's southern accent, we may need an interpreter for him. For all you Yankees up here, if we need an interpreter, just raise your hand. I'll give us one.
Well, I'm married to a Texan, so I'll translate as we go.
All right.
Exactly. Well, speaking of, so let's start with that. Growing up in rural Mississippi in the 40s, what was life like? Was it did you live a very quiet kind of country life, or what was life like for you growing up?
I was raised in rural Mississippi. We just didn't have anything. We lived out in the country. But one thing I had, forever, my dad put up a basketball goal. We had plenty of land, and my court was dirt. And I played so much ball that there was no grass on that dirt. My dad bought me a second goal, and I snuck in the kitchen and got me some flour out and dug with a hoe, a thing that would dig out, and made me a full-length basketball court with flowers, my out-of-bounds and my center line. I just grew up with nothing, so when you have nothing, the ball is the only thing you get to do.
Sure.
You could do basketball, and it didn't cost anything.
It's one of the magics of our game. All you need is a ball and a hoop.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Did you play other sports when you were a little boy?
I grew up, I played a little baseball, then I developed back problems. I had a yellow streak down my back when the pitcher threw hard, and I just couldn't stay in there, so I had to give up baseball.
Yeah. But you did go on and play, you played high school basketball?
I played high school basketball. I went to junior college in Mississippi, and I was just recently voted the greatest bench warmer in junior college history. But I had a love. I was the 12th man on an 11-man team. I didn't get to play any, but I loved the game. So when you can't play, what's the next thing you do? You coach. And I just always wanted to be a coach, and I was a high school coach, and I just had a passion for the game, and I just loved it.
Well, that's interesting. I wanted to ask you about that, because I know you started coaching when you were still a senior in college.
Yeah.
You started to coach, because you did transfer to Mississippi State, and you were a math major, among other things I read, which I thought was kind of fascinating. I wouldn't have guessed you were a math major going into that, but it was fascinating. And then you started to coach high school basketball while you were a senior in college.
Yep. The math degree got me all my jobs. Back in Mississippi in 1968, they just couldn't find a coach that could teach math. So because that's the only subject I was ever any good at. Let's get that straight. Yeah. English, you can tell, I'm here very long. I wasn't very good at that. And science wasn't my forte. I loved math, but so when I got a math degree, I got some jobs I wasn't supposed to get, not because I could coach, but because I could teach algebra. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I just got into coaching and teaching.
But how did you balance that, being a senior in college and coaching boys high school basketball?
When I became a senior, I was pretty well, had all my courses done. I needed to do what is called student teaching, and then I only had 9 more hours, and my coaching was on a limited basis, but I won 8 games and lost 14 that first year. I just thought I'd let you know my record. Almost got fired. And so, but I got my next job because I could teach math, and I went to a big school, and that's where my career kind of, I started out coaching nothing but boys basketball. I wasn't going to coach girls basketball. You couldn't. Ladies, please, I've made a living coaching women, so please don't take this next statement wrong. I just wasn't going to be a girls basketball coach. I was going to coach boys basketball, and that was it. And I couldn't stand to be a teacher. I just didn't enjoy teaching at all. And my principal called me in, and he says, if you'll take girls basketball during school, coach boys basketball after school, I will give you a pay raise and take you out of 2 math classes. I said, buddy, give me girls basketball. I'm ready for it. I went to interview at Ole Miss in 1978. I didn't want the job. Wasn't going to take the job.
Yeah.
Had no interest in the job. I turned him down 3 times, and he finally said, he says, I can't believe you don't want to move from high school to the SEC. And he asked my wife, and he said, what's the problem? And he said, well, you hadn't talked about the main thing. He thinks he's got to teach, and he don't want to teach. He said, he just busted out laughing. He said, you don't have to teach. I said, sir, I'll take the job. And that's how I became a girls basketball coach. Thank goodness.
Oh, thank goodness is right.
Yeah, Lord, it's been a great ride for me. Oh,
well, and in 19 years at Ole Miss then, coaching at Ole Miss, 14 tournament appearances. I mean, you went to Elite Eight and the Sweet 16 over and again. Was it a good program when you got there, or did it take a couple of years to really get ramped up?
I inherited a pretty good program, but we got started. One of my greatest problems, I had Pat Summitt and the Tennessee Lady Vols. I just couldn't get by those jokers. I tried 19 years, and bless her soul, one of the greatest coaches of all times and one of the greatest human beings of all times.
Right.
A better human being than she was coach. And we were just constantly trying to get there. And we had 4 times we were in the Final 8, but I just never could get to the Final 4. And so when the Houston job opened up, I was ready for that now.
Well, I was wondering, you've had unbelievable success, obviously, coaching on the high school level, on the college level, on the pro level, on the international level. When you approached each job, were you thinking the same? Were you the same coach, or did you have to coach differently on every level?
I coached. When I was a high school coach, I was a hell raiser. I don't know how players played for me. I went ballistic sometimes. I'm not proud of this. I'm not proud of this, parents. I threw a Coke bottle in a dressing room one time and busted it against a concrete wall. I did some crazy things when I was younger. But when I went to college coaching, I was coaching a more mature person, so I had to change. And then in 1997, the Comets tried to hire every coach in America. I mean this one. There would none of them take the job. And they finally got around to hiring me. And they asked me at the press conference, did it bother me I was the Comets' last choice? I said, heck no, I went in my mother-in-law's top 25 choices. and so we came back from, they give me the job, and I had 3 days in Oxford, and my wife and I were walking out one afternoon, and she said, you know, if you're going to be a pro coach, you're going to have to change. The greatest change I made was from college coaching to pro coaching. And pro players, they're grown women. They just you can only talk to them a certain way or they're going to tune you out.
But you didn't just become a coach. You became the most successful coach in the history of the WNBA. 2-11 and 111. You won 100 more games than you lost. You won 4 straight WNBA championships. Obviously, something was working. You had a remarkable group of women on that team. You were, it was one of those magic times that everything seemed to be clicking. Did it feel that way?
Let's get this straight right now. He's talking about all the games I won. I didn't win any. I had Cynthia Cooper, Cheryl Swoops, and Tina Thompson. That kid in that jersey right over there is about 7 years old, could have coached that team to a championship. Yeah. I mean, let's get the record straight. I had great players, but I had to adjust. Cheryl wanted the ball every time you went down the court. Cooper wanted the ball. Thompson wanted the ball. So you just constantly doing different things. But also, I made a change in basketball. In '97, Cheryl was not playing. She was having her first child, and we were 3.5 games out with only 8 games to go, and we were in Utah at a high school practicing for the Utah Stars at that time. And I realized my Ole Miss offense just was not working. It was based upon a low post presence. My low post player couldn't throw one in the Atlantic Ocean, so I was running too much offense through her. And I changed the offense and went into what are the pro play, the screen and roll with Cooper and Thompson, and the rest is history. It's called the C play, and that's the play that I made an adjustment, not only dealing with players, I made an adjustment X and O wise.
That's very interesting. Because the women you just described, obviously Hall of Fame players, 2 Coop already in the Hall of Fame, Miss Swoops coming in this year, joining the class of 2016, arguably 2 of the greatest women players ever in anything. These are not shy personalities. No. These are strong personalities, strong-minded women. What was it like to coach them, and how did you figure out management of all those very different personalities?
One of the most challenging things I've ever done in all my years of coaching was dealing with those strong personalities. They wanted to be the stars. It was a challenge every day, every playoff. I did everything you could in the playoffs. One time I couldn't get them to play together, and I went to the bank and got, in the WNBA, your playoff money is $10,000, and like it is in the pros, but $10,000 to these women making $80,000 a year, that's a lot of money. And so I went to the bank and got $20 bills out, and I put them all in a circle, and I made them sit down with their feet forward, and I told them, I said, you can't, I'm about to pull something out of this bag you can't touch. And I put all of that money, and $10,000 worth of $20 bills looks like all the money there is in the world. And it's all over their dress, practice stuff and shoes. And I said, is there any way in the world I could get y'all to get together and let's play for this money? Because if you win, this is what you get. And they didn't come together for the ring. They came together for the $10,000 that year.
It worked.
Oh, yeah. So it was a challenge. It's every day. Somebody asked me what it was like coaching 12 women. I said, just think about being married to 12 of them at one time. That's about like coaching them.
Well, obviously.
And I've been married 53 years, women. I want you to know. And she's been happy 40 of them, so I don't think that's a bad record. And we're happily married, and I just have all the respect for women. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm just, most of mine that I'm talking about this is just joking. So please, let's take it in the vein I'm trying to mean it in.
Absolutely. But go back to the college for 19 years at Ole Miss. Obviously, you dealt with many young women, different skills, different backgrounds, it was a time of real change as well in the society, in Mississippi especially. There's a lot of change going on in the world. How did you deal with those social changes as well as the changes in the game? Women's basketball was emerging all over the place.
Yeah. See, in 1978, you got to understand, we had only been into the integration of high schools only 5 years.
Yeah.
So you've got to understand this was integration in our state had only been 7 or 8 years old. And we were trying to deal with kids from so many different backgrounds, want them to come to Ole Miss and get a quality education and understand. And I'll just give you an example of the things I was dealing with. My trainer there, the head trainer, decreed, because he was in football, he wanted all women's basketball players to be there at 6 o'clock. Yeah, oh yeah, I saw the frown on your face that you said. He wanted them early so the football players could get it late. Well, I went to him, and I always had a council of players that would come to me. And they came to me and they said, Coach, we got a problem. Said, the white girls on our team, they just put their hair in a ponytail and put a cap on it. He said, for us young black women, that's the problem. To come out of training, we don't have time to go back and get our hair done, and that's why we're all late and missing treatment. And those are some of the issues that I had to fight through, that I didn't think that people in certain positions were sensitive to certain groups of
cultural
people.
Differences.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, but as far as me personally, when we integrated, I take to that like duck to a water. Because I tell you why. I saw great players. I didn't see nothing else.
That's right.
I said, players like Peggy Gillum, I wanted to coach. I wasn't worried about all that other stuff. I just coached them.
It reminds me of the story that Bill Russell always tells about when someone asked him, would he have had a gay teammate? How would he feel about that? And he'd say, can he play?
That's it.
Exactly.
That's it. That's how I coached. Started. I wasn't championing causes. I was trying to win championships.
Yeah. And so,
but I think we did champion some causes in our state because we evolved we had a lot of players from our state that got a quality education, and I'm proud of that.
Well, again, you talk about the coaching of young women in college level, these strong personalities on the Comets, which was remarkable. Let's take it another step even to the Olympic group. You have only the best women players arguably in the world on the U.S. Olympic team. You didn't just have a little success. You won a gold medal. You're 38-0 in international competition. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Now, let me tell you, the two great experiences. The Hall of Fame was a wonderful experience for me and still is. ladies and gentlemen, I'm coming up here today. I'm going to enshrinement in September. I played golf in Florida, all at their expense. I'm going to Phoenix at their expense. And I'm going to Los Angeles to play. I've won a free set of golf clubs, a brand new $500 driver. Yes, I love what the Hall of Fame does for me. Let's get that straight. That wasn't the question. Let's just get that out of the way right now. But in the Olympics, and I never dreamed I'd be the Olympic coach, much less a man. I was not involved, but we were fortunate enough to win. And they named me the Olympic, the coach to go to China.
For FIBA, FIBA championships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was named that coach, and I wasn't even dreaming of it. I wasn't even thinking about the Olympics. I never grew up thinking, I didn't think a man would coach the women's Olympics team.
Who approached you to become the Olympic coach? How did that come about?
Val Ackerman, the director of the WNBA, called me, and when she asked me would I take the job, I just busted out crying. Man, I just thought representing my country. Every time I put that shirt on, it's got USA on it, I just cry. So I picked the players, but I'd coached now all of these players in all-star games. 2 of them were on my team with the Comets. I'd coached Lisa, Don, and all of them in all-star games, the majority of them. So I knew all the players. When I was named the coach, I put in 3 rules: be on time, play hard, and don't embarrass USA. And I wasn't checking on them, and so it's the greatest experience I'd ever had. I got to go to China. I got to go to Spain. The Olympic gold was in Athens, Greece. I never had but one problem. Just looking at that reminded me of that elevator. I told them, I said, now I'm a stickler for being on time. So we're playing in Australia, and everybody's on the bus but Delisha Milton of the Los Angeles Sparks. And she's coming down the elevator, and it's 3 o'clock, and I said the bus was going to leave at 3. And I told the bus driver to leave. And Lisa and all of them, Cheryl said, Coach, she's coming down the elevator. I said, I don't care where she's at. We are leaving. And so we drove to the red light. She sprinted, knocked on the door, and the driver looked over at me and said, do I open the door? I said, yes, she made it. So when she gets on the bus is quiet as everything. Lisa Leslie said in front of everyone, I don't know I'm going to get here 15 minutes early. He's not going to leave me. and I never had another situation. In 3 years, we went to every country that you could go to. And for a country boy from Nanawarrior, Mississippi, to be in this Hall of Fame and to be on the Olympic coach, it's most unbelievable. Only in America, I promise you that.
Well, you're a country boy from Mississippi, but you're dealing with folks in China, you're dealing with folks in Australia, Japan, all over the world, in Greece. Yeah. Did you find it easy within the basketball world to talk to everybody, to make friends, to make acquaintances?
When you are the USA basketball coach, you can go to Cuba, you can go to Czechoslovakia, you can go to Poland. When you are the USA women's basketball coach, presidents, ambassadors want to have you out for dinner and treat you to a state dinner. I mean, everybody wants to talk to you when you're the coach, yes. I mean, the friendliness of people loved you. I was notorious for passing out Jolly Ranchers. That was one of my trademarks. I carried a box of Jolly Ranchers to China, and I passed them out early. I'd have them coming out early, standing up and clapping to see me coming because they wasn't used to hard candy there. It was a great experience for me.
After the 10-year run with the Comets, you went back to LSU for 4 years, a really great success again on the college level. What was that transition like to go back from the high pressure of those women back to the college level?
I was 63 years old. They called me from LSU and said, would you be interested in being our women's basketball coach? And I said, there ain't no way in heck. I am not going back to recruiting 18-year-old high school kids having to recruit, text them. I didn't even know how to text. My biggest challenge was taking and learning how to text when I went back to college coaching. They said, well, Van Chancellor, too bad. We're going to offer you a 5-year deal at more money than you've ever made in your life. I said, well, you have just hired a coach, and I became the coach that day. You can buy me. I mean, I just promise you that right now. You can buy me. I just want everybody to know that.
I remember when that contract ended and it was time, they moved you into a special assistance job and you had a lot of other responsibilities for the university. But I imagine that you'd been coaching a long time.
Yeah.
That must have been a difficult transition for someone who loved it as much as you do and still do.
In the WNBA, I was used to being off 4 or 5 months a year.
Yeah.
Win a championship, be off till the 1st of January, and then do player personnel. I go to LSU. Oh, God, I'm at 63 years old. And the first thing they want me to do is go in there and take a recruiting test and go to Virginia to start sitting on those no, they're wooden benches. They're not that nice. Go to high school gyms, and you got to get there at 8 o'clock and stay till 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. I mean, I'd been used to goofing off. I'd been playing golf every day. I had to go back to work. They wanted you to speak. They wanted you to do it all. I mean, you went to work at 8 o'clock and left there about 6 o'clock.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of work.
And then at that time, you could text all the time. So kids were just learning. They wanted to text, and the players could call you. I had a player to call me every night at 9:30, every night, 5 nights a week. I got old. Yes. The only thing that kept me going, please don't miss it, I thought about my check. That's the only thing. I'm going to tell you, it's pretty challenging when you're at that age.
Absolutely. You talked a little about your wife. We'll come back to her in a second. Were your folks involved in sports? Your mom and your dad, were they involved in sports or coaching in any way?
My dad was a heck of a basketball player. My mom was not. My dad could shoot the basketball, and that's kind of where my dad was a really good mathematician and a nice basketball player, and that's kind of where I got my love from. And then I got from my mother just how to treat people. My mother was just a wonderful, kind, never said a bad thing about nobody, and that's kind of that combination of now. But I was raised in a period of time that if you stepped out of line, Dad got that belt out. There wasn't nobody said a word. I mean, today they might have arrested my dad for what he did to me when I was growing up, spanking me, I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. But then you, as you mentioned, your wife, 53 years you've been married. Obviously, the job that you've had, the many jobs you've had, the success you've had, doesn't happen alone. She's been a remarkable partner.
Well, see, the great thing that happened to me, my wife moved with me at times where no one else would have moved. I was coaching. My first job in high school was about a mile from my dad and about 5 miles from her mother. And I got a chance to go to North Mississippi, 4 hours away, at age 23. And she didn't bat an eye, and we moved there. And then I got a chance to go to Ole Miss, and she didn't want to go to Ole Miss at all. And she went because she thought that was best for my career. In '97, I'm coaching at Ole Miss, and I'm just having the time of my life. And she moves to Houston when another coach turned it down because his wife wouldn't move. My wife just up and moved. I want to tell you this story about the job. My dad was living in Mississippi, and I'd always called him when I got ready to do a job. I said, Dad, the Comets have just offered me their job. I said, what do you think about it? And he said, boy, don't be the biggest fool in the state of Mississippi. That job, women's basketball ain't going anywhere. You're going to lose. You got the best job in the country. You got so many friends in Oxford. You just signed a new 4-year contract. You're having your first grandchild. I said, friends are the single most important thing that happened in your life. I said, Dad, you're right. I'm going to turn this job down. And he got really serious like all parents do. And he said, son, he said, how much money are we turning down? And I said, Dad, it's going to pretty well double my salary. He said, son, with your personality, you can make a lot of friends in Houston, Texas. And I became the coach, but she moved with me. When the LSU job come open, we were at a coffee shop, and I said, hon, LSU just has made us an offer. And she said, if that's where you want to go, that's where I want to go. And she didn't want to go back into college coaching, zero. But now, I've had the full support. We've been a team. When I was going to school making no money, she was making all the money. It was our money. When I was making the money, she wasn't making much. It still been our money. And everything we've ever done has just been us.
If anyone has a question for Coach, I should point out, just please come over to the side here. We'll be happy to include you in the conversation. But I know that as life has gone along, you also you had two children, and some grandchildren now have entered your life.
Let me tell you, the best single thing that ever happened to me, ladies and gentlemen, is grandchildren. If I'd have known they were going to be so much fun, I tried to have them first. I'll tell you that right now. I have 2 grown children. They have 2 children apiece. The daughter and her family actually live with me. So that's a wonderful experience. And my son lives about 40 minutes from me.
Really?
I actually left his house to come here and going back there tonight.
Is he coaching too still?
Yeah, they all coach it. My daughter-in-law just won a state championship in golf. It's so sad. She won a state championship in golf. Cannot help my golf game any.
No, I've seen you play golf. You're a pretty good golfer. This is all due modesty to.
I know how to pick a teammate.
Exactly. But so you've continued to work for the university. You watch the game, how it's evolved, how the women's game has evolved, how the entire game has grown. What are your thoughts now, so many years into this beautiful game?
It's an amazing thing since the day I started teaching, just coaching, just how much better athletes, more things. Candace Parker can do things that Della Dunn can do things. Della Dunn might be as good as there is out there playing right now. And the women's team, they can run, they can shoot, they're athletic. It's been an amazing change.
Absolutely. We have one question from the young man. Come on over. Ask Coach a question.
Come on over here, buddy. He
What
looks
is your
like a ball
question for
player.
Coach
I'm going to tell
Chancellor?
you that right now.
Has a ref ever gotten you mad on a bad call?
Has a referee ever gotten you mad on a bad call? It's hard to imagine.
Has a referee ever got me mad?
Yes.
Son, when I got out of coaching, I got down on my knees and said, Lord, thank you. I'll never have to deal with another referee the rest of my life. I hate to say that. I hate to tell a kid something, but I was in Detroit one night. I was getting beat 18 points, and I just thought it was the worst. So I just walked to the center line and got thrown out. Yes, I've been mad a few times. They drive me nuts.
What did you look for in a referee that you said, that's a good ref, he's refereeing a good game?
I wanted a referee that would talk to me and every now and then just say, well, I missed that call. Instead of acting like they're way up here and I could do no wrong, those drive me nuts. Yeah. And they got the toughest job out there. Now that I've quit coaching, me and the refs get along really good. I mean, I do a little TV work now, and I'm always saying nice things about them. But when I coached, I wouldn't say I'm not a cusser. Don't misunderstand that, young man. But they just drove me nuts.
Yeah. Thanks for your question.
Hey, come here a minute. Let me ask you. Come over right here. Well, how old are you?
8.
8 years old. Can you shoot? Yeah. Okay, next question. Does your dad and mom have a basketball in your yard?
Yes.
Well, good, because if they didn't, I was going to get on to them. You got to have a goal. You got to have a fresh new basketball to play with. Is that right?
Yes.
And let me tell you something. If you want to be a player now, get off of them little old machines y'all are playing on. Get out in front of that television and get in that yard and shoot. Is that clear?
Yeah.
What kind of student are you?
I like all sports, so I just like mix around basketball, baseball, football.
And
What position in baseball?
Pitcher, first base, and shortstop.
Well, buddy, good. Go back and sit with your mom. You speak really well. Nice job, man.
Thanks. Do well in school, I think is what Coach was saying, too. You got to stay on your studies.
Yeah.
Looking back, there's been...
We got another guy.
I'm
come
sorry,
on
sir.
up.
I didn't see you.
Come on up,
over
buddy.
here.
Don't be bashful.
No, come on over. A question for Coach.
Hello, Coach. How are you?
I'm fine.
Great. I wanted to ask you, since you've coached both males and females, what really unique qualities have the women that you've coached brought to the game that added something maybe more than what some of the males have?
Okay. That's pretty easy. You women basketball players, they're playing for the love of the game, and they don't have near the ego. And it's much easier to get them together to play for a common cause, the cause of winning. Now, the difference is if 2 women got into it today, they may not speak to each other for 2 months or a month. If 2 guys got in a knockdown fist fight, and they would play that night and forget it, 2 women ain't going to forget it now. You got to understand. But by the same token, they'll play harder and play easier together. They'll give up for all the little petty differences my big three had. When we got against their Liberty with 10 minutes to go, we would play.
Great. Thank you, Coach.
Yes.
Thank you. You look back at all the remarkable athletes you've coached over so many years, the Olympic team, the great teams of the Comets. Were there one or two women who you said, boy, we just got it with each other? They were like, they understood what you were saying right away. You were in sync with each other. It's a very special relationship that you felt coaching them.
When we were in the Olympic coach, see, when you're the Olympic coach, they forget everything. They forget all their little differences, all their in other words, Lisa and Tina Thompson almost fought in a tournament game one time, in a playoff game. Well, when they get on the Olympic teams and you have a common cause, you're trying to win that gold medal. It's just such a thrill to coach a team that's there for the good of the team, and they're all got a common cause and believe in each other. And then when in the '99 Comets team, we just had a team that was so together. My 2008 LSU team that went to the Final Four got beat 1 point for the national championship. They played together. When women come together, and they are together, and they're playing for a common cause, it's just the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen.
We got one more question. Come on over, pal. You have a quick question for Coach?
Who was the tallest girl that you had on your team?
The tallest girl you had on your team, would that have been Tina?
The tallest player I ever coached was
Lisa, maybe?
Lisa Leslie.
Yeah.
The tallest player I've ever been around is Margot Didak. When you met Margot she played for the Utah team, you would have to look up. I got a picture of one of my grandboys with her, and the first time they taken the picture, they couldn't get her head, and my grandboy said she had to pick him up and hold him. They couldn't back up far enough. She was almost 7 feet tall.
Very tall lady.
Yeah,
Thanks for your question.
Now, the kid that's the tallest playing right now is a girl that was at Baylor playing for Phoenix. She dunks the ball just so
Brittany
easy.
Griner, yeah.
Brittany Griner
Yeah.
just dunks the ball so easy.
Well, I'd be loath if I didn't ask you about two particular women whose one picture is already up there and one is coming this year. Tell me specifically a little bit, some memories of Cynthia Cooper, coaching her.
Cooper and Swoops.
And Swoops.
First of all, Cynthia Cooper, you just can't believe her practice habits. For 11 o'clock practice, she got there at 8:45, and she just worked, got ready, shot, concentrated, and had the greatest play late in the game. Cheryl Swoops was not quite as hard a worker, but had the greatest ability to make plays under pressure late in the game. As an athlete, Cheryl was just the best athlete. She was an athlete that sometimes our season would overlap, and some of the guys that was on IR for the Rockets at the end of their season or some of the guys that they wasn't dressing out would come up there and scrimmage. She could hold their own against them. But give me the ball with 1 minute to go, and let me tell you, Cynthia Cooper's just unbelievable.
Remarkable.
Remarkable athletes. I would get up a lot of days and just think how lucky I was that I was coaching them.
Well, I'm thinking.
I went to Madison Square Garden. We had to play the Liberty. We were just struggling against them, and I was kind of losing my confidence a little bit. We had not beat them, and then I looked over there. That was the first year, and I looked over there and I saw Cynthia Cooper, and all my little worries went away.
Well, I'm thinking about how lucky we are to have you join us today for this wonderful interview. I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to come over and get an autograph from Coach and say hello. So I'm going to wrap this part up now. But please join me in one more round of applause for our very special guest, Coach Van Chancellor.
Individually, if you would like to ask me a question, lots of times you don't want to come up in front of anybody, I'll be glad to visit with you. But I want to say this. The Hall of Fame is a special place. And the members that are lucky enough, this has been one of the greatest experiences, and they treat me so good. I tell you, they treat me like I'm Larry Bird, but I'm not Larry Bird, and I know it. And so is that such an honor? They bring you in here and treat you like you're one of the top players. I was nothing but a coach. And so I want to thank everybody here at the Hall of Fame. Thank y'all so much.
Oh, it's a joy to have you here, Coach. Thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen.